Hello and welcome to NintendoGal55's Halloween special. Last year, I talked about Tim Burton's masterpiece, first full-length stop-motion animation film, The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is, of course, a classic and one of my all-time favorite movies. Not only is it a great film on its own, but it serves to be a unique holiday film in which you can watch it on either Halloween or Christmas, still getting the same balance of either holiday. Now, it's true that there were attempts at making a sequel, to which Tim Burton had refused to do, specifically because he wanted to keep the movie as a standalone film without ruining it with sequels. Considering the track record with sequels a lot of the time, it's no wonder he wasn't exactly willing to risk it. Whether or not you agree with that statement is up to you, since we all know that just because a movie has a sequel made does not mean that it's going to be bad. But then, in 2005, Capcom released a video game follow-up to the movie, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Well then, boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Well, come with us and you will see just how this game has come to be. For this Halloween special, I found it only appropriate to look at this game, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. So the game starts off with an opening very similar to the opening bit from the movie, with a rendition of This Is Halloween in full swing. The game, of course, takes place a year after the events of the film, and it's Halloween again! We then cut to Jack, who is actually going through yet another crisis. Only this time, it's simply that Halloween itself needs something new. A lot might think that this is a rehash of the film, but it's actually a part of the plot that works. And again, while Jack does feel discouraged, he wants to try to do something about it this time. Jack then goes to Dr. Finkelstein, telling him of his plan, and then acquires the weapon we'll be using in the game, Soul Robber, who, I swear to God, is Flubber. Yeah, Flubber! Anyway, Jack's plan is to go out there, to who knows where, and find some new discoveries in order to make something new and exciting for Halloween. Seems simple enough, right? But as it turned out, he was overheard by Lock, Shock, and Barrel, who take this opportunity to bring back Oogie Boogie. Okay, this already sounds to be a problem, doesn't it? We then cut to 2 months later, on December 23rd, and this is when we finally see our female lead and Jack's beloved sweetheart, Sally. She is currently— whoa! Okay, she does not look the same as she did in the movie. What is up with the development team? They couldn't create a better character model? I mean, this is Sally in the movie. This is Sally in the game. I'll go through this again. Movie, game. Movie, game. Movie, game. You get the point. Now, to be fair, she does at least look like Sally, so you can tell it's her. The only real problem is some of the coloring and proportions here and there. I'll get to her voice acting in a minute. Alright, design flaws aside, we see that Sally is actually trapped with a ball and chain around her ankle while writing a note to Jack. She creates a paper airplane, hoping it will find him. Then it fades to black, in which we hear Oogie Boogie's evil cackle and Sally screaming for Jack out of fear. We don't know what's going on, but we can already feel a sense of dread.
Hurry, Jack!
We then come to the gate where we see Jack finally returning back to town on that same day, but he already has a bad feeling since he can see that the town looks deserted. He then sees a strange skeleton creature, a couple of them in fact, and Jack being Jack politely tries to introduce himself, only for this to happen.
Oh! I don't believe we've met. I'm Jack. Jack Skeleton. Well, you're not from Halloween Town, are you?
As Jack beats down the enemies, this happens.
What happened while I was gone? Someone's inside.
Okay, I'm just kidding. That doesn't actually happen. But a siren does go off, and we get— well, just watch.
Testing! Is this thing on? My dearly abhorred innocent children, this is Oogie Boogie speaking. Today I bring you a joyous announcement. First of all, in place of Jack Skellington, yours truly is now the today, this very hour, this exact moment, I declare this town's name will be changed to Oogie Town.
Oh, that's right, folks. Oogie is back, and he's out for revenge. Hence the title. Lovely, isn't it? Jack's gone for 2 months, and already the town goes and gets itself doomed. Anyway, so after that's over and done with, Jack goes inside the town hall, only to be met with a nasty surprise.
Jake!
That was quick. The boss battle isn't just the first few minutes of the game. Nope. That's just Oogie's shadow form. We battled him 3 times in the game total, in different forms, I might add. But not only is Oogie Boogie brought back, but he also managed to deceive and trick the entire town. It's now littered with traps, everyone's in trouble, and it's just basically gone to hell. So it's up to Jack to put a stop to all the madness, defeat Oogie Boogie, and return Halloween Town to how it was before. And that's our story for the game. How does it hold up? I'll be honest, while there are some little flaws here and there, especially in terms of not addressing certain things, I think the story is great. It comes to be a really good follow-up to the movie in an overall sense for a lot of reasons. Oogie Boogie being brought back might be a little far-fetched, but considering the town and what he really is and all that, it really isn't that much of a stretch either. Nothing is rehashed from the movie, and it really does feel fresh and new while still keeping to the spirit of the movie at the same time. I felt as if I were back in the world of the movie because it feels like a game of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Nothing about it is in name only. It really is a great follow-up in terms of the story. It certainly isn't perfect, but I think it was one of the best ideas they could go with. Because it could easily have been a rehash of the movie, or it could have been completely unrelated to the source material altogether. The way everything all comes up and is tied together throughout the game actually does end up working really well, both from the gameplay standpoint and also in terms of telling the story. Like I said, there are flaws. One of which being how Lock, Shock, and Barrel managed to do this. Where did Jack go? What did he find? Why was he gone so long? What happened? But whatever. Overall, the story is really nicely written, and it makes for a great game in terms of it. Again, it feels like something out of The Nightmare Before Christmas, so that's something that really sells it. I felt like we were back with the characters on this adventure. And speaking of characters, that's what we'll get to next. There isn't much to go into about them since they're the characters we all remember from the movie, so I guess this section will be a little bit condensed and different from my previous retrospectives. I will talk about aspects of what they do in the game here and there, and if I have to, mention their voice acting. If you haven't already guessed, we play as Jack throughout the game, so he's our playable protagonist, obviously. Once again, he is voiced by Chris Sarandon, just as always, but this time, however, he also provides his singing voice. I'll get to more on that when I talk about the soundtrack, but I will say that Chris Sarandon actually does a really good job with his singing voice. It's distinctive to note it's not Danny Elfman, like in the movie, yes, but I personally enjoyed it. Anyway, so as I said earlier, Jack is feeling discouraged because he feels that Halloween could be a lot better. Again, it is similar to the dilemma he had in the movie, but this time it's taken to a different turn that while it is similar, it makes a lot of sense. Jack does indeed love Halloween, and that's why he's trying to figure out ways to make it better and more different every year. That's essentially the driving force, the fact that they can't do the same thing over and over. He sums it up really well with this line early on in the game.
A fresh, new, and improved Halloween, Doctor. After last year, we can't just do the same old thing. We should all be inspired to do something different. We need new scares, new ideas, new discoveries.
And that's pretty much it. It's believable, logical, and understandable in why he feels this way and wants to fix it, especially after the events that happened in the movie. When trouble arises, not only is Jack left very confused, which is understandable, he still doesn't let it bring him down. He is determined to stop Oogie Boogie and save Halloween Town. You can tell this especially by his facial expressions and also what he says throughout the game. Really though, he goes through a lot of hell in this game, big and small, in order to overcome Oogie's tricks. Oh, and one thing too, you don't mess with Sally, not while Jack's around. Let's just say he doesn't take too kindly to finding out that Sally is in danger.
But not before some of Oogie's baddies grabbed Sally and carried her off towards the cemetery. I've heard the cemetery is pretty dangerous these days. I hope she's okay.
What? Took Sally? That's it. No more Mr. Nicebones.
You see? Remember back in the movie when he got angry after realizing that Sally was in trouble? Oh yeah, look what happened before and after that.
How dare you treat my friends so shamefully! Now look what you've done! My bugs! My bugs! My bugs! My bugs!
Exactly. The game really does prove in so many ways to be a faithful sequel. But on that note also, much like in the movie, he still is classy as ever, even when he's downright pissed off. So in all, Jack is still very much in character. He's the same character we all remember. All of the development he's had in the movie is present right here throughout, and it just feels like he is Jack Skellington. No doubt. This is Jack. He has returned in all of his awesome glory. Like I said, he's still in character all throughout. He's still the essence of cool. Optimistic, classy, smooth, determined, and kind. The master of fright. He's that same old skeleton man we all know and love. And apparently he's an awesome dancer. Then again, considering all the acrobatic moves he made in the movie, I can't say I'm surprised. Next up, we have Sally, pretty much my favorite Disney princess, yes, I consider her one, and one of my all-time favorite characters in general. Unfortunately, she doesn't have a lot to do in this game, which really does disappoint me. After all, in the movie, she was one of the main characters. She was relevant to the plot, her own dilemma gave the movie a lot of heart, she was a likable and very relatable character, giving the movie something of a balance. I love her character, and to see her so downplayed in the game just makes me think of the merchandise. Sure, sometimes she's there, but often she's either in the background or left out altogether. To be fair, it is partly because it's a video game and Jack is who we're playing. That's true enough, but they still could have implemented her into the game a lot more and gave her more things to contribute. But after everything she did in the movie, it's a disappointment. Most of the time, it feels like you could take her right out of all of her scenes and it wouldn't make any difference. Sometimes I feel like the writers just threw her in there because she was in the movie and because she's Jack's lover by now and they knew they couldn't leave her out. But I digress. The alternative would indeed have been leaving her out completely aside from a couple of cameos. So what we did get was far from bad. It was just too little, that's all. However, I do give the writers and developers credit for a couple of things. Sally is a lot less shy and nervous around Jack, which really shows how much their relationship has grown in the past year. Her dialogue clearly states how she's a lot more comfortable with him and isn't afraid to turn to him when help is needed.
You have to rescue Dr. Finkelstein. This key opens the gate to his manor.
Thanks, Sally. I'm glad you're safe.
We're all safe, now that our Pumpkin King has returned.
Pumpkin King? Sally, that's it!
What's it?
I am the Pumpkin King, and I can use my pumpkin fire to fight Oogie and his army. Good thinking, Sally.
Thank you, Jack.
No, thank you, Sally.
She also tried to take action by sending Jack a message about the fact that Oogie Boogie was brought back and took over Halloween Town. Like in the movie, she's trying to do what little she can to help Jack and try to protect the town. And what she does in the movie and game does take guts. As you saw in a previous scene, it was stated that she was kidnapped and taken away to the graveyard. Jack goes to the graveyard, endures the obstacles, and is eventually told that she's in the underground burial chamber. This is where our two leads finally reunite after 2 months, and also for the first time in the entire game. But more on that later. After you save her, she does prove to help you in little ways. It's because of her that you actually get to unlock both of Jack's other forms, Pumpkin King Jack and Santa Jack, as we see right here on the cover. She prompts Jack to remember his Pumpkin King form, and then later gives Jack a gift which contains his Santa Jack form. So, in a way, Sally does at least contribute a couple of things relevant to the game. And if you take the hidden chapter mission after saving her, you get to fetch some ingredients in order to make wormswort soup with deadly nightshade in order to put Dr. Finkelstein to sleep when you later battle him. It's not necessary, but it is helpful, and it's a nice little callback to the movie. And as you just heard, Sally also has a different voice actress. Like in her appearances in the Kingdom Hearts games, she is voiced by Katsusi, or Katsuse? I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I will give her credit in the fact that she is definitely trying and does an alright job of giving Sally a decent voice that's similar to Catherine O'Hara's performance from the movie. Still, it's very distinct and not nearly as good, but definitely far from awful. She still does a good job, and that's what counts. And she does make up for it by her singing, for the most part. In terms of the rest of the characters, there isn't all too much to say about them. It's kind of like in the movie, where it focuses on a few primary characters with the rest of them being in the background. The mayor is still, well, the mayor, and he's actually voiced by his original voice actor from the movie, Glenn Shaddix, being one of the few characters in the game to actually have their original voice actor. We do get to meet and help out a couple other characters, such as Clown, the Witches, the Hanging Tree, and the Vampire Brothers, all of which are all-around likable background characters and do their jobs just fine. One in particular I should talk about is, of course, Dr. Finkelstein. We all remember him as the brilliant scientist from the film who's quirky but has one fatal flaw. He treats Sally like crap and still continues to do so in this game. This in turn addresses another plot hole, such as, where is the creation he made at the end of the movie? Why doesn't he seem to realize that Sally has her own life going on and is dating Jack? Why does there seem to be no character development? It feels like they're playing it too safe and going right for the movie and not quite taking into account of the fact that it takes place a year later. Anyway, writing laziness aside, there is one thing they did with this character that I found to be very clever. It does relate to Oogie Boogie, but it's still worth mentioning in regards to him. As it turns out, Oogie Boogie replaced the Doctor's brain with an evil one, which just about literally brainwashed him into being evil. With that tactic, because the Doctor was in charge while Jack was away, he was able to trick everyone into making all kinds of dangerous traps and up all over town, therefore fooling everyone. Because it looked like Dr. Finkelstein made these orders and everyone knew he was in charge for a while. Yeah, I mean, wow, that's a clever tactic. It seems that Jack's line from earlier about him watching over things was very well done foreshadowing. Well played, Capcom. That was genius. Also, even with his brain switched, he still managed to retain his mannerisms, especially with calling Jack my boy like he does, as a way to further fool everyone. I mean, hey, wow, well done. Unfortunately, William Hickey had passed away some years before, so he couldn't reprise his role as the Doctor. Instead, he's played by Jess Harnell, who I have to say honestly does a very good job at capturing his voice. A little bit squeakier, but it works very well and is almost close to the original, so props to him for that.
Yes! That should work! Wait a minute! I have the sleeping soup that Sally made!
We also have Lock, Shock, and Barrel, the very ones responsible for this mess. Now, I do have to wonder why they brought back Oogie Boogie when they pretty much became protagonists by the end of the movie. Maybe they were playing it up as an act? Maybe Oogie's spirit influenced and possessed them? I don't know. It's never explained. They're still just as mischievous as ever, and also, this time, they actually follow up with the actions they convey in their song, unlike back in the movie. But we'll get to that later. Only Paul Rubens returns to voice Locke, while Shock and Barrel are voiced by Kath Soucie and Dee Bradley Baker, respectively. But overall, they do a fine job with the voices. They cause a lot of trouble for Jack along the way at various intervals, in which you usually fight them one at a time, and then later, all three of them at once. What happens to them by the end of the game, no one knows. And last but definitely not least, we come to our villain, Oogie Boogie. If there is one thing that the game did right, it's definitely Oogie Boogie. The writing, the character models, and of course the singing and the voice acting. That's right, Ken Page returns to voice him yet again, and that's just awesome because no one can play him like Ken Page can. It's as if he never left. Like I said about the movie, Ken Page sounds to be having such a blast with the role and is really giving it his all. That can still be said for the game, in which he exudes that same spirit and energy, which is just a joy. No one can play Oogie Boogie like he can. Ken Page is Oogie Boogie, much like how Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger and always will be. Anyway, so back in the movie, we were never given a clear answer as to what his motivations were. It did work, since everything else about him in the movie worked perfectly, and it adds all the more mystery and intrigue to his character. Here in the game, it's pretty clear, but it works well to the story and why he's back, making that his revenge makes sense. His goal, as we see at first, is to take over Halloween Town. Simple enough, right? But then, it gets even more extreme when he wants to take over all 7 of the holiday worlds. That's right, all of them! To become the 7 holidays king, to have an Oogie Day 7 times of the year. And, in a sense, that's practically taking over the world, yet without actually doing that. This was a very clever plot point and really adds just to why I really like the story and the plot angles they took in the game. Again, nothing about it seems rehashed. There was a fresh and new start that they could take with his character, and they did it really well. Overall, it's perfectly in character of him, and it's also a clever follow-up from what happened in the movie. As I said earlier, he has 3 forms. Shadow Oogie from the first battle, regular Oogie from the second battle, and then he has the ultimate form in the final boss battle, accompanied by an awesome rendition of Oogie's song. Just watch.
Oh, Jack, I'm just getting started. It's payback time. Is that all you got to say?
Totally awesome. Mega trash Oogie. And so that's our villain. You might think they played it safe by using Oogie Boogie and not recreating a new villain, but I'm honestly glad they did that, because not only would it have been a tough act to follow, what with how awesome Oogie Boogie is, but it wouldn't have felt the same. They managed to take the concept of bringing Oogie Boogie back and making it work, despite the reason why what follows with it more than makes up for it. And that's about it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where I talk about more aspects of the game itself. See you next time!